No.
Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
And the back-to-back convention weekends are over.
Yes.
And this is our ScareLA episode.
We just finished up going to ScareLA over the past weekend, and there was much to be seen and done, and we tried to fit as much as possible, and we're going to talk about some of it.
Some of it.
Or all of it that we could fit in.
That's what she said. Yeah, and ScareLA this year was at the LA Convention Center. It moved up from the Pasadena Convention Center. And I don't know, like, it's cool because there was a lot of room, but I think they had a lot of room.
They did have a lot of room, and I think where it works to the advantage is mainly on the vendor area.
Yeah, and it's weird, though, because I almost feel like it was an optical illusion because there were a ton of people there.
Yeah, there
but
were.
Because they had so much room, the aisles were wider and there was more space in between everything. And I think because of that, especially coming from Midsummer Scream where everything was so packed in,
right,
it was hard to walk through aisles. So when you compare and contrast, it might have been the same amount of people, it might have been more people, but it didn't seem like that many people because of that.
Right, and I actually prefer the wider aisles because it does allow you to flow through the floor quicker.
Oh, one of the things I can't stand about conventions are the people that walk like one step every minute. And it's like you try to go around and you can't because there's the oncoming traffic of the other side. And it's like, just move.
Yeah.
Conventions should have, okay. People have fast pass lanes and stuff for haunts and things. There should be like a fast pass aisle, like where like, okay, slow people that want to look at every booth, you be in this aisle, and the people that are walking through can be in this aisle.
And actually this, for ScareLA, became a big thing because the vendor floor was actually surrounded by stages where classes, and even mixed into the vendor floor were some areas where classes were being done, movement stuff was being done on the vendor floor. So being able to move around and get from area to area from one side of the vendor floor to the other was actually, I think, more of a key thing at ScareLA than the previous convention.
Yeah.
And the wider aisles definitely helped with that traffic flow.
And just like last time, we are going to not give you the links as we're talking. The links will all be in the show notes. We're still in that process of gathering our own notes, so we haven't even had a chance to check out websites and Instagrams and stuff like that. So all the information for everything we talk about will be in the show notes. One of the things that they had announced was the It VR experience, because it came from Comic-Con and had a huge turnout. And it's funny because you came a little later than I did.
Yeah.
But I was there at opening, and even at opening, the line was just huge. It was like, how did it get this long? The doors aren't even open yet. But it was nuts. And like that's one of the first things you saw when you walked in, outside of the ScareLA pumpkins. But to the right of that
That was beautifully
bus.
presented because it was actually in a school bus.
Yeah.
They actually brought in a school bus, and you waited in line to enter this school bus from the film. And what happened inside was very creepy.
Yeah, it was really well done and really cool. And there were two parts, which was neat. So the first part it was like a haunt.
It was more of a
Almost.
soundscape than
Yeah.
anything else. They kind of painted an oral picture of you stepped into. How would you describe that?
Sewer.
Yeah, but not just a typical sewer.
I didn't know there were different types of sewers.
So, well, first of all, this one fit humans, and but the floor.
Yeah, the water was running underneath with
Yeah,
all of the things that people may have dropped or taken from them and thrown.
yeah. There were underneath the floor, underneath your feet, there were children's articles like dolls and shoes, and there was a paper boat, which, if you know it, is very significant.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you stood there for a little while, and sound played around you.
Yeah, the details were really well done. The attention to detail.
You just stood in a sewer pipe and
Yep.
listened.
And you heard creepy things, you heard music, you may have felt things, something,
Yes.
which was awesome.
A little bit of a jump scare.
Yeah, twice actually. Oh no, just one. Once for I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, just once, but then twice where you got stuff happening.
We're trying to be obtuse because I believe that is going to be touring.
Yeah, exactly. So then after that room, they move you into the VR experience, and that was awesome. They had swivel chairs, and I think they used an Oculus. And one of the first things I said after we left, Russell, and I know you know where I'm going, is because we have PSVR, those Oculus goggles were so uncomfortable. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, good job, Sony. Like, no one from Sony listens to this, so it's like, but man, like PSVR, like, because I mean, it was so much more comfortable.
Yeah, it's just these were very, very. I think they were designed deliberately to make it as easy as possible for people to slip them on and slip them off because they were moving so many people through. What you did is you moved it in a group of what was there 9 people with us? I think
So, around that.
So like 9 people in 9 chairs. You went in, you sat down, and they literally just like put on the goggles, put on the goggles first, then now put on the headphones, put on the headphones, and as soon as you and seriously. If you didn't get them on immediately, they started that experience as soon as like the first pair of goggles went on.
Oh yeah,
because when I got mine on, it was actually the camera was already moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they had to. I mean, the line was wrapped all around.
Yeah.
their area, I guess you could say.
And what did you think of the experience itself, Mike?
It was fun. Like, it was really fun. There was some jump scares in there. It was cool seeing the new Pennywise. You know, I mean, it's obviously a teaser and it's marketing for the film, but it made me want to see the film.
Yeah, it did. It did. I was one of those cynical people, even though I'm usually not the cynical one. I was one of those cynical people when they first announced that it was going to be made. I was like, you know what? Everyone knows the iconic TV show, and yes, the TV series doesn't live up to the potential of what the book is. But, you know, it's so iconic, and it's such an iconic performance from Tim Curry. You know that cast very well, and there are some really iconic sequences from the TV miniseries. So I was like, why? And now that I've seen more of the new trailer and the marketing, I really am looking forward to this. And this made me look forward to it even more. Now, as far as the VR stuff goes, they did some really subtle, nice stuff. And one of my favorite moments in the VR thing, Mike, was when his name just went out of my head. The little kid's name is Georgie.
I don't remember.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry. But he appears. The child who floats the boat and disappears appears in this VR experience for a moment and walks away. And he sort of walks out of your line of vision. And I don't know if you did this, but I literally felt myself, I leaned over trying to get a different point of view because it was a VR world. Mm-hmm. And I actually was like leaning, I'm leaning my chair right now, moving away from the microphone. I actually leaned over and tried to peer around the corner where he went.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and that's probably coming from Resident Evil 7, like playing it in VR and like looking around corners. But it makes me wonder what everybody else looked like, you know, because we have done a bunch of VR, so you know we know to look up and down and around, and,
right?
You know, and I wonder how many people like just stared straight ahead, like, you know, a traditional movie kind of thing.
It's interesting because you know what, I made the mistake at first I didn't use the swivel chair.
Oh, that added a lot.
And what I realized is when there was a moment where you needed to look down and to your right, mm-hmm. and I literally was looking straight forward, twisting my body and looking down and to the right. And I'm like, wait a minute, I sat down in a swivel chair. Why am I doing this? It took me a moment, and then I would actually move. I was like, oh, this makes it so much better. There were a couple of really nice jump scares, really good atmosphere. They're concentrating heavily in the marketing on the sewer stuff, and you floated through the sewer, and there was a nice float sequence in this VR, which I thought was quite lovely.
That was great.
The way they utilized balloons was the high point for me in the VR, and I don't want to say what happens, But the ending of that, where all the balloons start to vanish, that was extremely cool for me. And I want to know if they're going to utilize that in the film because it's such a great idea and a great image. So I'm really curious. My curiosity is piqued for the movie, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that was great. So if it comes to your town or it comes around again somewhere and you get a chance to see it, definitely check it out. It's really good. And it's probably a total of maybe like 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
So it's up to you to decide if waiting in a line that's X amount of minutes long is worth it for that experience. But from what I've heard from people that have waited, it was worth it. Like I think I talked to someone that waited an hour and a half, and
Wow.
they said it was worth it. So
Oh, very cool.
yeah. And then after that, we tried to knock out a bunch of the haunts in the in Scarywood. And
Yeah, Scarywood was the in Hall B at the Los Angeles Convention Center, and that was the area where a couple of things had set up shop. And one that you had mentioned to me from Midsummer Scream that was going to be at ScareLA, Mike, Apartment 213.
yeah, I was really excited to see that they had a presence there because at Midsummer Scream, it was just some random posters and a website. And I think someone was passing out flyers at one point. And judging by the posters and judging by, what they said in the website, I thought this was a new extreme haunt. But what we saw at ScareLA made it seem that it was not going to be a haunt. But then again, I don't know.
Yeah, you described it as theater. It's like because
Yeah.
I came out and I said, "What did you think that was?" And you said it was theater.
Yeah, because you were sitting and watching something happen. And you did move to another room, and the actors were around you, but if we go to Noah's definition of immersive theater, if the audience wasn't there, could that show still happen? And yes, that show
yeah.
still could have happened. So I wouldn't call it immersive theater, but yeah, it was just kind of like horror theater.
I agree with that assessment. I really do. And I thought there were pros and cons to what they presented at ScareLA. I think the room that they built, because you felt like you walked into a very creepy home.
Yeah.
And there was a dinner table set up. There was creepy furniture. They came in and they sat you down in front of a television, and you watched a family disagreement sort of unfold. And all of that, the atmosphere was very effective, very creepy, very dark. It was very awkwardly staged because they sat us down facing away from the main performer of the scene. Literally, our backs were to the scene.
Right. And you had to turn around on the couch and to watch it.
Which either that was done deliberately to make us feel awkward, or it was a poor choice. I don't know which it was.
I'd like to think it was done on purpose because if you think about it, if you think about going to someone's house, you think you're welcome, you're getting comfortable, and then awkwardness happens behind you. You don't know whether you should watch or, leave the room or stare straight forward. Obviously because this is, happening, you're supposed to watch. But I think if this was real life, that situation, you become even that more awkward because you're hearing it, even though you're not seeing it.
Right. Talking to a few other people, like some people felt there was a Kurt Cobain reference made in the room. I didn't take it as that way. You were led into a second portion, which I thought was very interesting and had sort of how would you describe that character, Mike?
I don't, demony?
Demonesque, demonish,
Yeah,
demony.
or like maybe like a physical manifestation of one of their consciences.
Yeah, my weird interpretation was that it might be responsible for all of the pain and frustration and arguing that was going on around us. So that's sort of like, because that character did not speak, but the other characters did.
Right.
And I that was my own personal interpretation. So it was when we walked out, I was a little confused as to what I was supposed to walk out feeling, because I didn't feel scared
Right.
at all. You witnessed an argument that sort of escalated, and at one point there were some threats made toward us as the audience, but yelling doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
And I think that's might be why you said this was theater, is because you watched a dramatic scene unfold, but you weren't involved. And yeah, I was confused by what I was supposed to get from this.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's a new company and it's a teaser for something that they're going to do. You know, I don't know what the future holds for their show, if it's going to go more down this road or if this was maybe something they just wanted to get up to be involved with ScareLA. Like, I don't know. You know, I definitely want to know more about them. Like, it definitely intrigued me enough to keep following them and keep wanting to know more information. So whatever they have planned, I'm excited to hear about.
I do feel the same way about that, mainly because of that final character you meet. Because I like when I turned the corner and saw that character, I was like, whoa, did not see that coming.
Right.
Like, had no idea we were going into that territory, whether it be demonic, whether it be supernatural, whether it be into their mind. Like, that was a twist that really surprised me. And if you notice, I went right over and sat down next to the character.
Of course you did.
Because we were told, like, sit over there. And we're like, hey, yeah, I'll go hang with the creepy guy. So I definitely am interested in learning more. I definitely want to learn more.
Yeah.
And we walked out of that, Mike, and right next to apartment 213, there was a very small, short walkthrough, which in the program is credited to Albert Rees. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. I'll be totally honest. I'm not sure. But I know that he is a home haunter from the Pasadena area. And the reason I know that is because he actually volunteered for a haunt that I worked on with Evil Twin Studios.
Oh, cool.
So hadn't seen him in quite some time. And his walkthrough is very unique and very different. You entered, how would you describe this?
A home.
A home, but you walked through the creepy hallways of a home, and the artwork on the walls is all very dark, skull-oriented, lots of odd facial expressions. And here's the other thing, which I'm sure you noticed, Mike, a lot of it in black and white.
Yeah.
Which was I think the really cool thing about the whole tone of his walkthrough. And there were a couple of minor jump scares here and there, which were effective.
Hold on. Yes. Like, you know, we always talk about, like, you know, the haunts we go to at conventions, like, oh, cool, like jump scares, like, you know, but these might have had like some of the best ones. And there's two reasons for that. One, the placement, three, I guess, the placement and the timing, and the fact that it seemed like, you know, maybe it's his daughters, or, you know, because they were little kids, you know. And we mentioned this about the clown house when we went through last year. It's like, when you have kids acting, it brings such a whole new level of creepiness and fright. And he had effective creepy kids.
Yeah. He really did.
Exactly.
And a couple of the jump scares were definitely, you definitely have to credit those kids for knowing what they were doing. So at least when we walked through, like, they were on it for sure. And again, I am drawn to the artwork, and on the outside of this, there was like a huge skull sort of painting or carving or something on the wall that I was really drawn to. I kept noticing it every time I walked by. So congratulations on that. I hope that he is home haunting this year. I hope he's doing something in the Pasadena area, which is where last time I ran into him, I know he was. Unfortunately, in the ScareLA program, there's not a lot of information about the experiences they have in the Scarywood area and that whole adjacent section of the hall where, you know, like we just mentioned apartment 213, you know, Albert Rees, Heretic was set up there. There's another scare house called Rizzo we're about to talk about. But the program doesn't really talk about any of the backstory or anything.
Right.
And I actually wish that the program had given more information. So, and actually, Rizzo Scare House is what we did next, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
This was what I was expecting would be in this area, like more of this, because this was a somewhat big,
it was lengthy
maze, and it was a traditional haunt. Like it was awesome. They had a lot of actors. The makeup was great. A lot of good scares, a lot of ways they could utilize the same actors in different spots of the walkthrough.
Oh, damn you. I was going to point that out.
Well, go ahead.
So that actually the direction you were going. The techniques they used to disorient you included fog, strobe light or direct light in your face as you were walking down a narrow corridor, and actors appearing through the light. The switchback of the maze actually gave multiple opportunities for the one actor to scare you 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 different places. The Rizzo Scare House knows what they're doing. And I walked out of there going like, who are you people? Like, because you're not amateurs. It's like you've designed this really well. And the fact that they took that care and design to bring it to a convention, it's like, and apparently they are a home haunt. And what area are they in?
I think they're in the IE. I don't remember. I remember Susie was talking to them about it. I think it's like Redlands, maybe. Like
I
don't
so
know.
sorry. Like I didn't write a note down about it. So hopefully, if you go to the ScareLA website and you want to learn more about the home haunts, Rizzo Scare House will be listed there. These are experienced home haunters. It's like the techniques you brought up, and like I said, that was the thing that surprised me. Was like just wow, like you really, really planned this out well for this convention floor, and yeah, and I agree with the costuming thing. It was a very white and red and black motif, which was really stark, and under the strobe lights, all of that works really, really well. Yeah, I enjoyed this for like set production design. There was none. Other than the fact that it was black plastic walls that you had to find your way through. So the fact that they were able to get the scares out of it that they were able to get is really effective. Nicely done.
Yeah, and I went through this a couple times actually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just because it was a haunt. You know, and I was like, okay, again, please. Yeah, and then after that, we went to see Debbie's Halloween 3D UV light maze. Say that 3 times fast.
This was fun.
Yeah. I think this was here last year.
I think it was too.
Because I remember, I was like, wait a minute, this looks familiar for some reason.
And literally it is a maze that you walk through wearing 3D glasses, and they use a lot of the fluorescent paint, which pops in 3D, and it was like a circus funhouse with horror overtones, more horror overtones than you would normally find in a circus funhouse for some people. My favorite, Mike, was you got to a section, I don't like spiders. So you got to a section where the spiders, there was a spider web on the wall, and the spiders just sort of leapt out in space towards you. And I literally went all the way around that room, just like looking at the spiders from different perspectives, and got up close to them and then moved back. I loved that area. But there's lots of really, really fun surprises in this.
Yeah, and it's really cool just what, this was just done with paint and like 3D glasses. Like it's in black lights. Like it's just nuts what our brains do when you combine certain things.
Right.
And seeing this, like, and this wasn't scary. It's just really, really cool.
I was unable to go through this last year, the 3D one last year, and I was so happy I got to do this because it was a blast. I loved this thing. And I did the nerdy thing of every now and then I'd take off the glasses and like, wow, I cannot believe this looks this way in 3D. Because it's completely flat. So yeah, this was really fun. This was goofy fun. And this is completely something that you could do with a home haunt. Completely.
Oh, of course. I mean, the expense of getting the glasses and, that might
the
be
paint,
a thing. Yeah.
The specialized paint. But no, this is absolutely something anybody could do, with a little artistic talent. And I thoroughly enjoyed going through it.
It's for a little, I mean, not that it's a little effort, but like the effort compared to the payoff is huge.
Oh, yeah.
So there was some other things going on in this area, in this hall that weren't haunts. One of them was something called the summoning. And already, anything that makes you do something before you can enter just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And when you got to this, you had to download an app. So for people that don't have unlimited phone plans, or, they stream music and are at, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, come on, really? And so I did download the app. I walked through, and the rooms and the environment was really cool.
Extremely cool, yeah.
But the app didn't work. Like, I guess you're supposed to see ghosts and stuff. Like, if you look at certain places in the room, nothing happened.
Right. And by the way, the name of the app was the Clever Fox app.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this at a different time than you, Mike. And I had the same experience. I walked up, downloaded the app, and I was lucky enough. Was there a line for you?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I walked up and it happened at a lull, and I just walked up to the guy and I went, explain to me what this is, please. And he gave me the pitch of download the app. You go through, you scan everything in the room, and you see ghosts. So I did, and I walked through, and I didn't see anything. Nothing triggered. However, they were playing very cool 80s music, and I enjoyed the atmosphere of the room. So then I walked out, and there was no one in line at that point. So I walked up to the guy and I said, okay, I don't think I'm doing this right, because I looked over someone else's shoulder and I saw a ghost on their phone.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't see anything on mine. So could you do me a favor? It's like, you look a little slow. So could you tell me exactly what to scan so I can see the ghost? He was like, oh, you have an iPhone. And I went, what?
You mean the phone that most people have at this point in life?
Yeah. And he said, yeah, the app is a little problematic on the iPhone. It works much better on the Android. So I just, it was like one of those moments like, and you're not telling people this.
Yeah, like, why are you not saying, hey, we're having issues with iPhone, when you see people pull out an iPhone?
And other people were in the room with me also having problems, and they were also having iPhones. So what he did is he told me very specifically, he said, okay, go in, scan the first poster you see, scan the first missing thing you see, scan this part of the wall, and scan the child's face on the other wall. Like, he gave me like 4 things. He said I think there were 7 things total, and he gave me like 4 of them. So I went in and I got the first one to appear on my iPhone by being very, very still. And what I was doing is I was moving the phone up and down, changing that angle, rather than just keeping it like eye level. And I think that might have helped me a little bit. But I'm wandering around and I can't find anything else to appear, even though I'm scanning what he asked me to appear. Other people are in there with iPhones too, and they had a friend who had an Android, I guess, and he was having success, and then he was showing on his phone what they were missing. And then I turn around, and the guy that I had asked for help had come in and was trying to do it also. And he was having problems with his phone. So it became this kind of like running joke about like, okay, everyone with iPhones, I guess you won't, like, look at his phone. And so I stepped out, and the guy actually told me this. He said, it's kind of weird because I tested everything this morning with my phone before they turned off all the lights in the hall. And he said, I had better luck when it was a little bit brighter. So
you're supposed to find ghosts when the lights are on?
I guess. I don't know. And to be totally honest, the ghosts were more like... do you know what the posterization effect is? It's like a video effect that was really popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
The ghost kind of looked like that.
Okay.
Kind of a neon orangey overlay of what was in the room. So, and you saw like the one that I saw was a woman who had her back turned to me, and she sort of shrugged her shoulders and looked down, like she was having an emotional moment. So yeah, the summoning didn't really work for me.
Yeah, me either.
Glad we didn't wait in line.
Yeah. So something else that you had done that I didn't get a chance to do is there was a circus in town.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
That was actually one of the highlights of ScareLA for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
they had a big, wide open patch of real estate kind of taped off for sliders because they had sliders throughout the weekend performing for the crowd. And on the other side of that area where the sliders were having fun and entertaining people, there was an actual circus tent. And I, at one point, basically just wanted to sit down and rest because I was feeling a little a little spent. So it was an upcharge of $20.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there was an upcharge. However, for $20, what you got was you got a half hour, full-blown professional circus performance.
that's cool.
And the first routine was a really unique. God, it's not a hula hoop routine because they weren't hula hooping. It was this guy who manipulated very large rings, and it's almost impossible to describe, but like seriously, Mike, the audience fell in love with this guy because he was just so charming, and he would wrap the rings around his body and form various shapes. He would mold them into various shapes, and I am not doing his performance justice in this description, trust me. It's like, yes, there was a guy with rings, but it was so much more. And by the end of it, the audience was just so charmed by him, and it was a great opening for this thing because it just put you in a circus mood. And there was also an aerialist who did a full-blown aerial routine using a spinning ring. There was a contortionist, really traditional, old-fashioned contortionist, which had people gasping.
Wow.
Like, she was amazingly awkward to watch. Because you just kept looking at the shapes she was forming with her body going like, I don't know how she's doing that, and breathing. So that was really, really cool. The highlight for me was, of all people, the magician, the comedy magician, very well known, Ed Alonzo.
Nice, from Saved by the Bell.
Yes. Even though that's not how I know him.
Yeah, right. You're like, let's go to the Max.
No, he performed 2 different routines during the course of the show. There was also a traditional MC, kind of like setting up these acts and introducing them. And Ed Alonzo performed his really, really kind of signature piece, which is a very, very funny comedy straitjacket routine. And then he also did an incredibly funny balloon routine that just killed.
It killed someone?
It killed someone. Yes,
Nice.
it did. But yeah, that was it was just really, really high quality circus entertainment, and Ed Alonzo doing his comedy magic. It was one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm bummed I missed that.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was a blast, and I think, you know, I talked very briefly to the woman who was sort of hosting people and putting people, getting people into the tent, and she said, my impression in talking to her is that some people didn't know what to expect, that because they were doing some sideshow stuff on the stage next to this tent,
Right.
at various times, and there was. Rhythm Coffin, the band, was performing there. So there was darker stuff happening on the stage next to them. So I think some people got a little confused as to what would be in the circus tent. But, you know, I hope ScareLA keeps bringing like a wide variety of stuff like this in, because this was great for me. I loved doing this.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't make it because there was a couple things that we didn't get a chance to do inside this hall. One of them was Heretic, and man, always lines.
Yeah.
You know, which, you know, kudos to them because their mystique, like, more people want to know about them. But that's one of the reasons I didn't join you, is because I was hoping to get in, but I was waiting in line, and then I had to get to a panel, and so I didn't get to do Heretic.
Right.
And then also there was the Flatline VR experience, which you almost did.
Almost did, but I ran out of time because I was trying to do a panel, and by the time I got back over there, they were closing up shop. Now, hopefully the Flatline thing will be making the rounds and will be released in various formats. I believe that's the intention for the Flatline VR experience.
Cool.
So, yeah. Now, something that we should mention, Mike, This was something that we witnessed early on, and I think they fixed it by midday. But when we were waiting in line for apartment 213, they actually came up and they moved the line once, and then they split and rearranged the line another time. And then I heard people at the Flatline VR experience who had time slots walk up, and then the Fast Pass or Press Pass people who were told that they were front of the line were saying, oh, well, we get priority, but other people had time slots, so that line got really messed up.
Yeah, a lot of our friends were involved in that. And
so there were obviously, they did not have the line etiquette or line procedures in place before opening.
yeah, it seemed that nobody knew, because when
Yeah.
we were in line for apartment 213, the person working there was like, wait, what? There's two lines? Like, what are you,
Right.
what?
Right.
But it seemed like it all got sorted, so, which
Yeah,
is good.
it was really frustrating. I know it cost some people some time, and I know a lot of people tried to make up Flatline later in the day and didn't make it on Saturday. But yeah, there were definitely some hiccups in the beginning of the day of people not knowing what the procedures were, and I'm talking on the staff of ScareLA. So I know that was frustrating. Some of the vendors, you could see it.
Right. One thing that ScareLA had a bit more of than last week were escape rooms. So the good thing is we were able to do a couple of mini escape rooms that weren't at Midsummer Scream. The Bunker and Puzzle Mazement, which is a new company that I hadn't heard of until this convention, which, that's what's awesome about these conventions is you can find these new companies and it's like, oh, here's another new one to try out. Like, this is awesome.
What did you think of Puzzle Mazement?
They were hard, but super fun.
I agree with that. Because you know me, I have puzzle and cipher and riddle issues. I actually we did one of these together, and then I did one of them with a different group than you. And I walked out and told you both times, I want to do the full version of this, if there's a full version.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a credit to them in the fact that their puzzles are intricate and fun, even though they are very challenging.
And not to brag, but to totally brag, they told us we were the only team to escape from the burial ground room.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but we literally within a second.
Oh, wow.
Second left.
Yeah, we unfortunately we missed an obvious clue.
Yeah, you told me about that, and it's just like just shaking my head.
Yeah, it was a couple people searched one area looking for clues, and multiple people missed the exact same clue. So, but still, it was really, really fun. Fun is the key word.
Well, not only that, they had 2 rooms.
Yes.
So, I mean, up in the ante for escape rooms, having 2 experiences.
And we did the other one together.
Mm-hmm. And we did not escape. We almost did. We were on that last part. And we didn't get it.
That was another complex puzzle involving lots of intricate pieces.
Yeah.
And we didn't figure. I think if we had like another 60 seconds, we might have gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's like we were going in the wrong direction on one of them. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so check them out. Definitely, if you're an escape room enthusiast and you like hard rooms, have a feeling this is going to be up your alley.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also, the Bunker experience was there.
Yes.
And we did the Bunker experience maybe a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And had so much fun because there's a surprise at the end. And they had a mini escape game there as well that we had both played. And it was a cool way to do it because you're not really escaping.
Right, exactly. Who did you do this with?
Dawson.
And I did it with Addison, who showed up on Sunday. So, yeah, like how would you describe this?
You're saving a life.
Yes.
That's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, very cool twist on a short 10-minute experience. You still have to find clues and solve riddles and, work things out and
multiple locks,
unlock things. But the end goal is a bit different, which is cool.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and it was nice seeing B from the Bunker Experience was there.
And Charlotte.
So yes, thank you to both of them. Really, really nice, fun experience.
And not only that, I was talking to them afterwards, and starting at the end of September, I believe, and going through October, they're combining rooms at their location. So they're having a 90-minute game.
Oh, wow.
And there's a flyer, so this isn't spoiling anything, but it says multiple escape rooms, live actors, and in a maze. Yeah, this has to happen.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, just what we went to before was fun. So if they're combining, because we haven't tried their new room yet.
No, we have not.
So if they're combining the old room, what happens at the end of that with a new room and monsters and actors? I can't wait. This is going to be awesome. So there was another maze there. I don't know if you did it, but I did it.
You did. I did not.
So there was a corn maze there, and it was just an inflatable thing that you walk through. And I hate saying this because sounds so cheesy, but this was so much fun.
Oh, man.
Because it was a literal maze with dead ends, and you have to find your way back out again.
Right.
And it's something so easy, not easy, but like something so simple. There were no actors inside. There were no monsters. It wasn't scary, but it was just fun.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it?
No.
Were you scared?
No, it was just like, it was one of those things I kept walking by like, I should walk in through there. I should go through there. And I just never stopped and actually did it. And I just ran out of time. So, and when I turned around and they were deflating it at the end of Sunday, I was like, oh, damn it. I missed it.
So another thing that you and I had done was they had an area set up, and they called it like the horror museum. Mm-hmm. And based on your love of Halloween,
oh my God,
all of those like artist proof, but like photographs, like, I mean,
yeah, they had these beautifully framed prints of on the set photos from John Carpenter's Halloween when it was shooting, and just beautifully framed, well mounted, very nice stuff. Just iconic images and behind the scenes images both, and they were just, yeah. I got all warm and fuzzy walking through that area. And
they had some cool art hanging up, and they had some props. Yeah, it's cool to see that stuff.
It was an art display area.
Yeah, and it'll be cool when the actual museum opens up, and we can go anytime we want.
Yes. Which is something that is hopefully going to happen in the next year or so, I believe.
Yeah, supposedly. And then we ended our ScareLA with an immersive theater panel. Mm-hmm. And we were excited about this panel because it had some of the best immersive creators around. There's Darren from the Tension Experience.
Justin from Creep and the Willows.
John Braver from Delusion.
Paul from Wicked Lit.
And the new kid on the block, who's starting something in Vegas called Illicitous Theater. John was there representing that.
And Brian from We Are Indie Horror was the moderator for this panel. Mm-hmm. And this led into this is another one of those cases, Mike, where I wish they'd actually had a little bit more time for the panel.
Yeah, because hearing the stories about getting things ready and production and finding a place and writing, like all that is so interesting. Because, and kudos to Brian, because one of the things that he had said is he wanted this panel to be more for the enthusiasts, like to hear information that we might not have heard before, instead of the how did you do this or how do you do this, that kind of thing. He wanted to dig a little bit deeper, which was really cool because he's a fan as well. So, if it's something like if we moderated a panel, we would want to know stuff, like we would ask questions of things we want to know.
Right. And to be a little bit more specific, I think, at times they touched on things like how do you handle crowd flow, in an immersive piece that's 2 hours long and you're moving people from room to room and they're crossing paths, and it sounds a little bit boring, but permit and location issues came up, but it's not boring if you're really a fan of this type of work,
right?
Because it affects you, the patron. and it affects the work that you see. So hearing conversations about how locations are dealt with and augmented and utilized, all of that type of stuff is interesting. And we got a little bit of a tease of what's coming from Wicked Lit and Elicitus Theater, though that's the one from Vegas. They world premiered a trailer for their new piece. That's going to be very interesting. Tickets go on sale after the haunt season this year. And so it was a really nice, informative bit about, well, you know what it was? It was hors d'oeuvres. It was a teaser for what was coming for the fall season.
Well, there's good news and bad news also that you didn't mention. There will be no Delusion show this year.
Yes.
But there will be next year.
Yes.
And I guess they already have a place.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to hear.
That sounded awesome. So, but yeah, if it is sad to hear there is no Delusion. It's interesting though that Wicked Lit also made it clear that they're back at the Mountain View Mausoleum this year, and they're going to have a long run. So it's wonderful to hear that these things are going to be in place and have long runs that go slightly beyond the haunt season, because already I'm looking at October going, holy crap, it's going to get busy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're going to be nuts.
Yeah. But in a good way.
Yeah. And I actually recorded the panel, so it's on YouTube, and I'll include a links to that in the show notes.
So does that cover everything that we tried to fit in and take care of?
Well, yeah. Before we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit more about like the vendor floor, and because there were differences that I saw between last weekend and this weekend. I felt like ScareLA had a more VR presence and more special effects like makeup and prosthetics. There was a lot more people doing demos because at Midsummer Scream it was basically Larry Bones and his crew doing them. But here there was a lot of booths selling makeup, doing makeup, and like there was airbrushing and prosthetics and transfers and things like that. There's definitely a lot more movie oriented things as opposed to haunts.
True.
This week. Yeah, and going back to the VR thing, there was a few, but the lines just got so long, and I think that's gonna be an issue when you have VR at these conventions, because it takes time to set up. It takes time to give someone an $800 headset and make sure they don't break it.
Right.
There's a lot of care that has to go into it. So if you are able to get in line early and see these things, that's awesome. But a lot of times people have that mentality of, oh, it's a 5-minute experience. I'm not going to wait an hour. I'm not waiting in that line.
Agreed. And it's something that I heard actually after Midsummer Scream. I heard a couple people who were a little disgruntled about, well, everything we tried to do was full.
Right.
Everything we tried to sign up at was full. Well, there's two sides of that. Yes, there should hopefully be more available to more people. Shorter experiences help that. I mean, we complimented a couple at Midsummer Scream last week. Like, it's a 6-minute experience, and they're doing 4 people at a time, and they're moving them through. That's a good thing. More like that would be helpful. But you're right. You have to. I know people who wanted very badly to see the It VR thing, but were not about to spend their day waiting in that line.
Yeah. And I think there might be ways to do it, but unfortunately, it's gonna, based on how many people can go through, based on how much time, there is a finite number of people that can go through.
Exactly.
I mean, look at what the escape rooms do. They sign people up. They know it will at least take X amount of minutes. If worst case scenario, like they don't escape, and then another X amount of minutes for setup, and they time it that way, and they sign people up for time slots, and they get full within a half hour of opening. If these experiences did the same thing and then had maybe a standby line, maybe that would help alleviate some of it.
Possibly, yeah. I also noticed something that I did not get a chance to see anything at, but there was a screening room here at ScareLA, which at one point I know got a huge line for one of the things that they were doing. I'm not sure which presentation. So that was active the entire weekend. There were various classes, which a couple of the areas on the vendor floor, Mike, were set aside for that sort of presentation. I always felt that was a little awkward sometimes if you have someone speaking and trying to like give information to an audience that really wants to hear it, and they're out on the floor where there's other noise and distraction going on. And actually, Midsummer Scream had the same thing going on. That's an awkward situation.
Right, because I went to a couple of those for a few minutes. I saw the ending of Madison and Luke's presentation from Crossroads about escape rooms, and I saw part of Carolyn from Mabel's 6 Feet Under presentation, and it's the same thing. It's like it's just off to the side. It didn't feel official, if that makes sense. Like
okay.
because yeah,
It
like
does.
you have a screen and you have microphones and everything, and you can hear, but it's tough to pay attention when there's so much going on behind you. And what ScareLA used to have when they were at, like, you know, in Pasadena and at the Reef, separate rooms for each of those.
Right.
And I think that would have made it feel a little bit better, because the people that do go to those things, like, they're there to learn and they want to hear and they want to pay attention. But sometimes it's just hard with everything going on.
Right.
you
And
know?
the way the ScareLA vendor floor was laid out, there were times when people literally were wandering through the presentation
Right.
almost.
Yeah.
So, and another thing I want to point out about ScareLA, the main stage area was this wonderfully beautiful separate main hall. What were the projections on the wall?
Just they look like atmosphere effects projections.
Yeah, but during a presentation,
Yeah.
literally on both huge projections on two sides of the stage during presentations. And so, like, when the Elicitus trailer was playing during the panel that we went and saw, I kept getting drawn away from the Elicitus trailer screen. And Delusion also had a wonderful behind the scenes presentation about their VR shoot. I kept getting distracted by what was like running on the wall next to the screen, which complemented the panel. I thought that was a really odd choice.
Yeah, but it's for atmosphere, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. However, the good things about the vendor floor, definitely the wide aisles, the layout, I wish they would have gotten a little bit of the classroom vibe, a little bit farther away from some of the vendor vibe, but the area felt wide open. It was bright enough that you could see anything you wanted to. I saw a couple of really, really nice displays by some of the companies there, offering everything from art to toys. So yeah, the vendor floor was fun, and their kind of like haunt area. Oh, by the way, we never mentioned what we kind of like alluded to it. Scarywood was part of the haunt area. It was like something you'd find in a big active home haunt where there were little scare characters running around. I thought that was nice. It was a place I kept cutting through that area as like a path to get from one point to another. And what I kept seeing is families back there with kids, because it wasn't too scary, but it was kind of creepy. So I thought that was really nice.
And based on our playing of Friday the 13th, how many times did you just go and rip open a tent like Jason does in the game?
So Jason was running around. By the way, there was a nice cosplay Jason running around, and it was the one from part, oh my gosh, is it
I
part
think 8? No.
6?
Yes. Oh, yeah, with the
lake.
chains, right?
The lake,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, with the one with the chains. So and another thing that we haven't been talked about, but there was some nice cosplay running around. A group of trick-or-treaters was kind of fun. And I'm drawing a blank on his name. The character from Jeepers Creepers was running around. Somebody cosplayed him.
Nice.
Which I thought was really nice. Definitely creepy clowns running around. And I like clowns. I don't think clowns are bad. I don't have the clown phobia. So, but yeah, the creepy clowns running around. Yeah, I saw a lot of interesting cosplay. Is there anything we haven't mentioned, man?
Probably.
I'm sure there is. I was hoping you to remember.
Yeah, no, I mean, but as far as things that we did and were able to see, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
You know, it was a full weekend. How do you feel, you know, because last year it was very clear that they were separate entities, the two conventions, and they can both coexist. How do you feel this year?
I think the two conventions, Midsummer Scream and ScareLA, are developing different personalities.
Right.
I think that is a huge plus. I think it works in both of their favors. As far as I know, ScareLA is intending on being back at the LA Convention Center next year. I'm not saying that as an official thing. I think that is their intention. So I think they're expecting to grow. I ran into more people that I knew at Midsummer Scream. I saw more different types of people at ScareLA.
Right.
So I don't know what that says about the crowd.
Well, I think there's a crowd separation. I don't know. I didn't see a lot of crossover. Because Midsummer Scream is definitely geared more towards Halloween and haunts, and I feel like ScareLA is leaning more towards horror and movies, and not so much haunts. Mm-hmm. Even though they do have a haunt presence, it's not their major draw.
And it was not nearly as large as Midsummer Scream. So yeah, I agree with that assessment. I really do. I think I think you're a little bit more astute and observational than I am this year.
So, I mean, if you're asking me the question I just asked you, like, I think they can coexist, except I think the crowd is going to split and people are going to choose at this point instead of coming to both, which is unfortunate. But especially being a week apart from one another, it's, people, money issues and, people that have families finding babysitters and things like that.
And also, I think vendors will start to have to face the same decision for some of the same reasons. And also, I'm sure as a vendor, it's exhausting to do two conventions weekend to weekend.
Not to sound like crybabies, but even for us, it's exhausting just like walking around all day, when we have desk jobs, so any sort of physical activity is like, I have
Shock
to walk.
to the system.
But you heard, like Monday you had other stuff happening. So
that whole ambulance ER thing.
But even like today, it's just like, I'm glad they're over, and that's not taking into account the setup and the teardown and the long hours and the working their booths and, things like that. All of that. It's just like, I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah, it is an impressive achievement for both conventions to pull off what they have pulled off. I think I agree with you that ScareLA, I think, is going to forge a different path. I think it's going to be a different crowd, probably, than Midsummer Scream, and that will be its strength in many ways. It would be nice if the two conventions were not next to each other. I think for vendors, for fans, for participants of any level, I think that would be an advantage. And I think it would financially benefit both conventions.
Yeah, definitely. So overall, though, I did have fun.
Absolutely. I'm glad I went to both conventions.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There was enough difference in both. It's not like it was the same exact vendors, the same exact like games or anything like that. So it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed both conventions. I wish them both well. ScareLA, thank you very much to all of the crew and the staff and the volunteers. Wish you well and good luck for next year.
Yeah. All right, but before we go, Russell, we have some shout-outs to give. The first one is, just like last week, a huge, huge thank you to Madison and Luke and the crew at Crossroads Escape Games, and also Andrea from Loot Crate for providing loot crates to give away to the winners of the fastest times. Thank you, Madison, so much for keeping track of the times. And, it was so much fun and people got so excited and it was really cool to see and, feel their enthusiasm. So thank you again for working with us. It was awesome. And actually, one of those winners have a podcast, and I met them, and they have a podcast called the Six Demon Bag Podcast. So make sure to check them out.
Which, by the way, I have listened, and it's fun.
Also, Ashley and Brittany. I saw Ashley actually outside as I was climbing up, and she looked like someone else. So we kept doing that weird, like, I think I know you, I think I don't, I might not, but I don't want to say anything. Mm-hmm. But then when I was inside, her and Brittany were signing up for the 60 Out escape room. And she's like, "Are you Mike?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so we talked, and she listens to the podcast. And so just wanted to give you a huge thank you for listening. And it was awesome meeting you and awesome meeting Brittany. So yeah, thank you.
And I was lucky enough to run into them the next day, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They walked by, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this is Russell."
So yes, thank you guys for listening. Absolutely. And I would like to do a quick thank you for the chance to meet Haley and Dominic. We ended up doing the escape room as part of the same group. And they were in my group when I did the burial ground, Mike.
Nice.
So, which we failed to escape, and we died. Horrible deaths.
Yeah,
well,
I love them, so I'll give them a shout out too.
So I kept running into them. After you introduced me to them, I kept running into them over and over again.
Yeah,
they probably think I was stalking them.
They're great.
So, and I met TC, who also listens to the podcast, and it was great meeting him. So thank you again to everyone who came up and said hi. And it just much appreciated. Thank you for the support. And always, please keep us informed of what you're enjoying and what you're liking. And I kept doing that with people like, well, wait, what's your favorite thing you've seen so far?
Yeah,
so,
it's good to hear the lay of the land. And
yeah,
what
definitely.
What everyone thinks.
So thank you to everyone who we ran into, and even people, I'm sure there's people we haven't mentioned who said hi. Thank you to all of you. This is one of the best things, Mike has said it multiple ways, multiple times in the last couple of podcasts. Part of the thing about the conventions is just connecting with people. And we really appreciate the chance to do it. And thank you all for listening, and thank you for saying hi when you have the chance.
Yeah, because especially after what happened this past week, like, it means that much more than you could ever possibly know.
Yeah, it does to me. Yeah, definitely. So, and thank you for all of the well wishes I got at ScareLA, because word had started to spread that I had been very, very sick the previous week. So thank you to everyone who wished me well and sent me messages and all of that. I do appreciate it. And I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. So I'm only crazy. That's the only thing.
Or just stop. You're digging a hole at this point, man.
So, but seriously, thank you to everyone.
So with that being said, I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
Thanks for listening.
See ya. Yeah, I would agree with that. What did you say? What?
Nothing.